does. Let's start with DFS, though. Who's the best bet in DFS to have the most DK fantasy points tonight, Garion?
Yeah, not a ton of options, but I would say Karl-Anthony Towns is probably the safest play, up above 9K on this slate, so it stands to reason he's probably going to score the most DraftKings points. Not an ideal matchup against the Knicks, although the front court a little bit weaker if Nerlens Noel doesn't play in this game. He's been out the last couple, nursing a knee injury, but Towns has just been really, really good. He's been his usual self. His past 10 starts, he's averaging 1.43 DraftKings points per minute played, and that volume could get pretty crazy tonight. I think this is probably the more competitive game, especially if you're just looking at the spreads on the DraftKings Sportsbook. And Towns has played some serious minutes the last two times Minnesota has had a quote-unquote competitive game. He's been up over 39 minutes played in those two games. So if he gets anywhere around 37, 38, 39 minutes, I just don't think there's anyone catching him tonight.
Who is going to score the most DK fantasy points, you think, tonight, Matt?
To me, there's one really, really important variable that will dictate who's going to be the top scorer, and that's if the Pistons can score enough to force Steph Curry to actually have to play his normal minutes and to have to play the fourth quarter. The one thing that's clear to me is that Julius Randle is the safest per dollar because he's much cheaper than Curry and Towns. So in terms of fitting a guy in your lineup, I think Randle makes more sense. So the guy I most want to roster here, if we're really trying to get into this question, I think Randle for cash games. Randle might even be a better GPP play. There's so much savings there, but there's a chance that if the Warriors' defense isn't that good, there's no Draymond, Gary Payton's hurt, may not play. The Warriors' defense may continue to have problems like it's been happening in recent games. And in that scenario, Curry's upside is huge because the major concern for him is they're 15-point favorites and you might have a blowout. So Randle to me is safe, but Curry I think has a chance to really blow up the slate if the game does stay close there.
All right, Matt, let's go ahead and make our way to the DK Sportsbook now because this segment is called Best Bet. So your favorite player prop tonight is what?
I don't have a lot that I like tonight, but this Warriors game staying close does open up a lot. And Kevon Looney hasn't gotten the minutes that he had originally gotten when Draymond first went out. And the reason for that is none of the Warriors games have been staying close lately. I think they've had 3 blowouts now in a row. They've been on both sides of blowouts, actually. If the Warriors are in the game against the Pistons, which is a big if, Kevon Looney has a points, rebounds, and assists line at 16.5. He's probably playing close to 30 minutes because the reasons why he doesn't play are really 2 things. The game's not close and they just play the younger players, or they're trying to come back and they need 3-point shooting and he doesn't really fit into that. With Draymond out, if you have a relatively close game, I think that Looney is the guy that the Warriors want to play at center. And the Pistons aren't a small team. I mean, they do have some decent big men who are at least they're large enough where you maybe want to have a center out there. They're not a small ball type of team. So I think Looney could play a little bit more than he's been playing, and for that reason, I think his props look good.
All right, Garion, like a player prop tonight on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, Matt's brought up twice now the variance that could be possible in this Golden State game, depending on how this script plays out. One guy who we pretty much know exactly what his role is going to be is Klay Thompson. He's going to play somewhere between 20 to 24 minutes tonight, regardless of how much the Warriors are winning or losing by. And the Warriors are really trying to maximize his minutes right now. He's got a usage rate around 35%. And because of that, he's actually making a career high 5.8 3-pointers per 100 possessions. So he's been pretty efficient behind the line, even if he's not shooting quite to the level we've seen Klay shoot in the past. But his 3-pointers made prop tonight is 2.5. It's plus money to the over. We have been seeing his minutes trickle. I don't want to say massive jumps or anything like that, but maybe he plays 23.5, 24 minutes tonight with a 35% usage rate. We've already seen him take at least 7 3-pointers in 3 of the 4 games he's been active for. Klay just has to have an average Klay shooting night to get 3 3-pointers. So I think at plus money, that's a pretty good prop.
All right, Gary, in Minnesota at the Garden, second half of back-to-back for the Knicks. They are 3-point underdogs. How do you see this one playing out here?
I feel like this will end up being a popular side, and that makes me a little nervous, but there's a lot of reasons to just like the Timberwolves here. The Knicks have been one of the worst home court teams in the NBA in terms of covering the spread. Minnesota's been fantastic on the road. They've actually covered 7 of their last 9 games as a road favorite. they've just been covering a lot lately. And that's because in January, they have the third best net rating in the NBA. They're outscoring teams by over 9 points per 100 possessions. Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back, although it's kind of a weird augmented back-to-back with that game tipping off so early yesterday. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of action in the Timberwolves. I'll be a lemming here and say the Timberwolves do come out on top here tonight.
I mean, the Timberwolves here, Maddie, do have some rest advantage and are playing some of their best basketball of the season right now.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that all of that has been factored into the line at this point, though, because the opening spread for this game was only about 1, and we already are seeing it at 3. So all of those contextual factors, I just feel like that's the reason the line has moved. And now we have a line that's basically fair. The one thing that could change how this game looks is if Kemba Walker plays. So as it stands, I'm probably leaning Minnesota. I'm probably with Garion. But if Kemba comes back tonight, I actually think this line will go back the other way. And I kind of like the Knicks at +3, only if Kemba's playing. So without him, I think maybe the Wolves should be favored by 3, 3.5, 4, something like that. I have a slight lean there, but I'm actually pretty interested in the Knicks if they do get Kemba back in the lineup.
All right, well, last one here, Maddie. Warriors return home after an ugly 1-3 road trip. Draymond Green, he remains on the injury report, but Steph Curry does not. A big spread here, 15.5 points on the DraftKings Sportsbook. What are you looking to bet in this one?
Do I have to bet anything in this game?
No, you don't. You absolutely do not. No. So it's a stay away spot for you then.
I think it probably is, but Gary Payton II, I'm just going to bring him up. I think this is a good opportunity to just talk about him again. I think that you actually could argue that Gary Payton is in contention for the second best player on the Golden State Warriors when healthy. Like, Draymond is good. Obviously, Curry's their best player. Draymond's good. I think Payton is as good defensively as Draymond. He's questionable, so we already know Draymond's out. If Payton's not playing, I do think this game has a legitimate chance of staying close because I don't think the Warriors are the same defensive team when you take Green and Payton, who has low-key been unbelievably good on defense this year. You take both of those guys out, we saw what happened. They just lost by 20 to Minnesota, and they've had some other bad games recently too. So if he's not playing, I will reluctantly go with Detroit plus 15.5, but I really want Payton to be out of the lineup so that this game has a better shot to stay close.
I mean, Gary, and much like the Timberwolves here, the Pistons were playing some of their best basketball this season before getting humbled by the Suns on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a low bar. They are 5-4 in their last 9 games, but
there you go.
Second worst net rating in basketball across that 9-game span. So it is an interesting mix. It seems like either the Pistons hang tough in about half their games or they get absolutely blown out in their other games. Yeah, I don't really have a strong lean here. I would say that when push comes to shove, I'd just take the points with the way Golden State's been playing without Draymond Green the past week and a half. The under is sort of interesting in the sense that both of these teams in the month of January have bottom 5 offensive ratings. I think we focus so much on how much Golden State loses defensively without Draymond Green, but he's also just essentially their point guard. But at the same time, like Matt was saying, if there's no Draymond, if there's no Gary Payton II, that's the 2 best defenders on Golden State being absent. And now you're asking a team to, maintain an under, which I don't think Detroit is necessarily an offensive team that I fear all that much. I think this total is a little inflated, but yeah, I would say soft lean to Detroit in the points, soft lean to the under, but I feel more confident about just betting Minnesota, if we're being honest.